Is this truly a sign from the Lord that a big change is imminent?
Could this be the prophecy from the book of Zechariah finally coming true?
There's a fault line running right down the middle of the Mount of Olives that was discovered in 1964. Right now, this ancient mountain is showing visible cracks. Engineers are scratching their heads. Geologists are concerned. But what's really got people talking isn't just the science behind it. It's what was written about this exact scenario over 2,500 years ago in the book of Zechariah. And if you think this is just coincidence, wait until you hear what else is lining up. The Mount of Olives has been cracking for months now. It did suffer damage as a result of landslides, as evidenced by a large landslide scarp found in the western slope. But here's what's wild. This isn't random geological activity. This mountain sits directly on one of the most active earthquake zones in the Middle East, and recent reports show the cracks are forming in the exact pattern described in ancient prophecy. If you're interested in prophecy, current events, or just want to know what's really happening in Jerusalem right now, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Trust me, what we're about to uncover will change how you see the news coming out of the Middle East. Let's start with what happened in 1964. Construction crews were building what would become the Seven Arches Hotel on top of the Mount of Olives. A fault line was discovered under the Seven Arches Hotel on the top of the Mount of Olives during the time of its construction. This discovery forced them to completely change their building plans. Why? Because they found a massive geological fault running directly through the mountain from east to west. Fast forward to today. That same fault line is becoming active. Jerusalem is located 25 kilometers from the active Dead Sea Fault, which is a part of the Dead Sea Rift system. The cracks aren't just appearing randomly. They're following the exact path of this fault line, splitting the mountain in the precise direction that was predicted thousands of years ago. But what makes this even more incredible is the prophecy itself. The prophet Zechariah wrote something that seemed impossible to ancient people. An apocalyptic prophecy in the book of Zechariah states that Yahweh will stand on the Mount of Olives, and the mountain will split in two, with one half shifting north and one half shifting south. He described the Mount of Olives literally splitting in half when the Messiah returns to earth. For centuries, people read this and wondered how a mountain could actually split in two. Was it symbolic? Was it metaphorical? Now we know there's a geological reason why this could happen literally. The fault line discovered in 1964 runs east to west, exactly as Zechariah described. Half the mountain would shift north, half would shift south, creating a massive valley. Here's where it gets even stranger. The Mount of Olives isn't just significant to Christians. 3 major world religions all point to this mountain as the location where end-time events will unfold. Jews believe that when their Messiah comes, those buried in the ancient cemetery on the Mount of Olives will be the first to rise from the dead. Muslims believe this mountain is connected to the Day of Judgment, and Christians believe this is where Jesus will return. Think about that for a minute. 3 different faiths with different theological systems, all focusing on the same mountain, and now that mountain is literally cracking apart. But there's more to this story. Directly across from the Mount of Olives sits the Golden Gate of Jerusalem. This gate has been sealed with massive stones for over 500 years. The Ottoman Turks sealed it in the 1500s, reportedly to prevent the Jewish Messiah from entering Jerusalem through this gate, as prophecy said he would. The gate faces directly toward the Mount of Olives. What's shocking is that a rift could open up along the Kidron Valley, splitting the Mount of Olives in two, as predicted. Recent geological surveys show cracks forming not just in the mountain itself, but in the ancient walls near the Golden Gate. It's as if the earth is preparing for something massive. Now let's talk about what scientists are actually seeing on the ground. The unstable slopes in Jerusalem are located on soft Sinoian chalk. The Mount of Olives sits on some of the most unstable ground in the region. This isn't solid bedrock. It's chalk formations that become extremely unstable during seismic activity. Jerusalem's walled old city may be the worst hit in an earthquake because it rests on layers of debris, not solid rock. Geological surveys have been warning about this for years. The combination of unstable soil and the active fault system creates perfect conditions for exactly what Zechariah described. Recent seismic monitoring has detected increased activity throughout the region. Israel now has densely spaced seismic monitoring stations and a ready-made alerting system that allows warnings to be issued within seconds of an earthquake larger than magnitude 4.5. They're preparing for something big. What's really got experts concerned is the pattern of seismic activity. The strongest recent earthquake of the past 10 years near Israel occurred on June 10, 2022, with a magnitude of 5. While that might not sound massive, it's part of an increasing trend of seismic activity in the region. According to area geologists, Israel has been ripe for significant seismic activity. The Dead Sea Rift System, which runs directly beneath Jerusalem and the Mount of Olives, is one of the most active geological zones on Earth. It's connected to the same system that created the Red Sea and continues to spread apart. But here's what's really mind-blowing: the timing of all this. We're seeing cracks appear in the Mount of Olives at the same time that global tensions around Jerusalem are reaching unprecedented levels. Political conflicts, religious tensions, and now geological instability, all converging on the same location. You don't have to be religious to find this fascinating. The odds of an ancient prophecy accurately describing the geological vulnerability of a specific mountain in the exact direction a fault line would split it, thousands of years before modern geology existed, are astronomical. Either it's the most incredible coincidence in human history, or something else is going on. Think about what we know now that ancient people didn't. We understand plate tectonics, we know about fault lines and seismic activity. We have geological surveys and earthquake monitoring. Yet somehow, a prophet writing 2,500 years ago described the exact geological process that modern science says could happen to this mountain. The implications are staggering. If this prophecy is accurate, and the geological evidence suggests it could be, then we're looking at one of the most significant events in human history, potentially unfolding in our lifetime. The splitting of the Mount of Olives isn't just mentioned casually in prophecy. It's described as the moment when everything changes. What makes this even more compelling is what's happening globally. We're seeing unprecedented natural disasters, political upheaval, and social chaos worldwide. Ancient prophecies describe a time when all these things would converge before the end of the age. The cracking of the Mount of Olives might be just one piece of a much larger puzzle. But here's the thing that should concern everyone, believer or not. The mountain will split, creating an enormous valley. If this happens, it won't just be a religious event. It will be a geological catastrophe that affects millions of people. Jerusalem sits on unstable ground, and a major seismic event could devastate the entire region. The economic implications alone are massive. Jerusalem is one of the most visited cities on Earth. Millions of pilgrims and tourists visit annually. A major earthquake or geological split would impact global tourism, religious pilgrimage, and international politics in ways we can barely imagine. And that's assuming this is just a natural geological event. If there's any truth to the prophetic claims about divine intervention, then we're looking at something that transcends normal geological processes entirely. What's clear is that something significant is building in Jerusalem. The cracks in the Mount of Olives are just the visible signs of much deeper instability. Whether you view this through a scientific lens or a prophetic one, the evidence points to major changes coming to this region. The question isn't whether something will happen. Geologists agree that the fault system beneath Jerusalem will eventually produce a major seismic event. The question is when. How severe it will be and whether it will match the biblical description of the mountain literally splitting in half. For those who take prophecy seriously, these developments are deeply significant. The Bible describes specific signs that would appear before the return of Christ, and many believe we're seeing those signs align in our generation. The cracking of the Mount of Olives is just one of many indicators they point to, but even skeptics should pay attention to this story. We're watching geological processes unfold in real time that could reshape one of the world's most important regions. The intersection of ancient prophecy and modern geology at the Mount of Olives represents something unprecedented in human history. The implications extend far beyond Jerusalem itself. This region sits at the crossroads of 3 continents and is central to 3 major world religions. Any major geological event here would have global ramifications that we're only beginning to understand. What we're witnessing might be the early stages of one of the most significant events in human history, whether you believe in biblical prophecy or not. The geological evidence suggests that major changes are coming to the Mount of Olives and the surrounding region. Whether you're a believer, a skeptic, or just someone interested in incredible coincidences, this story demands attention. The mountain that has witnessed some of history's most significant events might be preparing for its final act. The cracks are there. The prophecy is clear. The geological conditions are perfect. All that remains is the timing. And based on what we're seeing right now, that timing might be closer than anyone imagined. If you found this information as fascinating as I did, make sure you hit that like button and leave a comment with your thoughts. Do you think these cracks in the Mount of Olives are just natural geological processes, or is there something more significant happening? Subscribe for more content exploring the intersection of ancient prophecy and modern events, because this story is far from over. The Mount of Olives is still cracking, and the world is watching to see what happens next.